Let me just record. Okay, great. Well, we're here for part two of our GLP talk. I just wanted to start with a little bit of a review, a really short review from what we discussed last week. And that was that we established that GLPs are whole to part learners, while ALPs or analytic language processors are part to whole learners. So the way that we talked about that was that with ALPs, they learn like to babble, use one word at a time, start to build phrases, sentences, conversation. So that's part to whole. And then for GLPs, it's flipping that to be opposite. So where they start with these longer language chunks, these wholes or these gestalts, and then over time, they learn how each individual word has its individual meaning. So whole to part. And then something that we didn't quite discuss as I didn't quite say as overtly as I should have, is that to advance the GLPs through the stages, we model natural gestalts that fit the communicative function. And so that's when we start to play investigator. What is the function of this gestalt? What does it mean to the speaker? And then we provide language models of potential gestalts that might stick with the learner to fulfill that function in more than one way or in a more robust way. I remember that a question that came up last week was when a child reverts back to stage one gestalts, like what do we do with that? And our responsibility as an SLP or as a communication partner is to give them the language and see what sticks. If it sticks, that means that it works for them. Something that we also didn't say quite overtly is that GLPs are auditory learners. They've shown us this by learning the language that they hear and echoing it either immediately or through delayed echolalia. So they're with keeping in mind that they're auditory learners, we just have to talk. We just have to model. And we can talk more about that too as we progress through today's presentation. I do have the outcomes here, and the part in yellow, as you can see, I amended one of the outcomes from last week to fit with our AAC users. And then lastly, I think that this is the part that everyone's wanting to know, like what do we do and what do we not do when interacting with our GLPs? And we will establish that as well. Okay. If part of my screen might be obstructed because I have our chat open, so I can, if it's distracting, I can move it up a way. Okay, something that is that I have talked with some of our guests here about is some language that I have adapted when talking about AAC users. Now, the study that I referenced here, How to Talk About AAC and AAC Users by Zisk and Conan in 2022, it interviewed adult AAC users with autism, at least some with autism, and established language that that is preferred by the AAC users and how we talk about AAC. Now, you might be wondering, well, this is a GLP presentation, why are we talking about this? I just kind of wanted to establish the language that I'm going to be using as we welcome my guests here too, so there's no confusion. So I'll use language like AAC user, which refers to a person who uses AAC. I will refer to a client's AAC device as a device or maybe an iPad or a tablet. I will use language like the child is non-speaking rather than the traditional or historic non-verbal.
Got my baby brother.
Welcome to everyone. And I wanted to acknowledge these 2 points here about using the language of a device and non-speaking or minimally speaking, because I think that some terminology that is that has been used in our clinic, in our academy, just kind of colloquially in the therapy world, is referring to someone's device as their quote unquote words, and someone who is non-speaking as quote unquote nonverbal. I wanted to establish that as part of my moral compass, as part of the research that I'm citing here, to refer to somebody's device as their words is just neurologically incorrect. I have a little image here that shows that our language, our communication is stored in the brain rather than only stored externally from somebody's body. And so in order to shed some light on that, I do want to establish that that referring to somebody's words as only external from their body does not align with my research that I'm citing here. It doesn't align with my moral compass. And so I wanted to share that with you all too. And then nonverbal quite literally means that they are without words. That's the etymology of it. And we know that that's not true. So I also want to say that I am approaching this topic as an SLP who does not have a non-speaking family member or a child. And so I don't want to take away from your experiences as parents. And like this is language that you can adapt if you want to. But I am not going to be policing anybody's language. I'm just explaining the language that I choose to use. Okay. And if you have questions, I can talk about this to exhaust. So, but let's proceed. So some considerations that we should account for when interacting with our GLPs who are AAC users. First of all, we all use augmentative and alternative communication. We text, we use emojis, we use facial expressions and hand gestures to emphasize our the points that we're trying to make. Now, early stages of Gestalt language processing are highly individualized. That's why we have to investigate, you know, where is this Gestalt coming from? Like, what is it that's clicking with the kiddos? You know, like what's that movie? What's that song? And it's because it's it's because there's no prescription to someone's Gestalts. It is just individual to them. So there's no quote unquote best AAC system for the GLPs. No one size fits all, even for our ALPs. I know that's where in the AAC evaluation, the SLP would make decisions about the AAC system to use based on some features, which we can discuss in the upcoming slides, that match well with the AAC user. Now, because none of the established AAC vocabularies are like one size fits all for GLPs, what we can do is add supports for GLPs. And then we also want to use and give access to vocabulary that supports all language functions, similar to what we've talked about with our speaking GLPs, is that we want to give them gestalts that fit the language function. Okay. So some features of AAC that we should look for. Now, I want to establish a little bit more of like this terminology that's used in the speech world of core vocabulary versus fringe vocabulary. So core vocabulary is kind of like what you would see on this like first page that's pictured here. Words like stop and go, eat, help, see, etc. These words can be paired with other words to have different meanings. So for example, like go away, go outside, go again. Or like I'm going to the store. You can take this word and use it in a bunch of different contexts to communicate different messages. So that's core vocabulary. Whereas fringe vocabulary can only really refer to one, two things. So those are largely our nouns. So an apple only means an apple, or perhaps the company Apple. Similar to a chair only means a chair. You can't pull that and mix it with something else. So that's the distinction between core and fringe vocabulary. So some features that we want to have both core and fringe vocabulary available on an AAC system. We also want a system that has visual or photo scenes, or something that we can at least like have camera access to. Excuse me one second. So for a lot of our kids here, this is where we would, take pictures of like the gym or of the messy room or something to give them to program language that's about their environment or about their people even, stuff like that. We also want to program strategically, or strategic and efficient phrases. This is something that would cater to the person's interests, exactly like how we were saying that early Gestalt language processors, it's so highly individualized that we would want to program phrases that are individual to the client. We would also look for the ability to link audio and video. Some of you might have my own voice recorded on your kids' devices. Some might have a recording or a link to an audio file or to a YouTube video. And we would want to also have access to the alphabet and rich intonation in the tone of the speech output, if as long as it's possible. The alphabet is something that some parents might already have experienced this, that if something is not available, or if a word is not available on a client's device, they might be able to spell it out, which is pretty fascinating to see. A lot of our kids have kind of taught themselves how to spell by giving them access to a keyboard like this. Let me just check the chat and our waiting room. Just want to make sure we're okay. Oops. I think we're good. Okay. Now, for programming AAC devices for GLPs, like I said in the previous slide, we wanted to program strategically and with efficient phrases. So some quick, the way that in this class that I took just over the weekend, actually, they referred to it as like quick fires. So it's like building a sentence that is already catered to the kids' interests, that we later, as they advance through the stages, can model and like dissect, like how we talked about this word segmentation, how each individual word has its own meaning. So we would get through that over time. So you might be wondering exactly that, like if we're programming long phrases, but the goal is segmented speech or segmented words, then why program them in the first place? And the idea is that it's exactly like how our speaking GLPs would learn language. They start off in these longer chunks, and then eventually they learn along the way to mix and match the gestalts, and then eventually with that the individual word has meaning. I hope that makes sense, and if it doesn't, please add something to the chat, or feel free to turn on your microphone and interrupt me. So some efficient phrases, like one of our kiddos loves opening and closing the door, like the automatic door to the clinic. I'm sure many of you have seen it. So I got to thinking, what about some phrases like let's open it. This is fun. Can I open it? Can you open it? Um, Giving this language to this thing that's already so highly preferred, and ticks the box of multiple communication functions, which I've also outlined at the bottom of this page. So the single words are needed for stages 3 and up of natural language acquisition, or GLP, Gestalt Language Processing. So we don't want to remove the single words in the early stages, leave them there. So what that means is that the first page of one's AAC device is the one that has that core vocabulary, that like high frequency vocabulary, like more, go, eat, drink. And that can stay there. This quick fire page would likely be, or should be programmed on a different page. I guess that's that about that. So again, instead of restructuring one's set vocabulary, we just add to. It's very much a yes and approach. So I have a kiddo who every time he sees me, he likes to say, listen to music, Humpty Dumpty. And that's because in this first, in one of our early sessions together, I sang Humpty Dumpty with him. He had a great time and laughing, giggling, playing. It was so much fun. We had that connection. And so he wants to go back to that, yeah, let's listen to Humpty Dumpty. So I was thinking some quick fire phrases that we could have on there are, let's listen to Humpty Dumpty, or let's listen to music, make it a little bit more general. Can we play Humpty Dumpty? I love playing Humpty Dumpty with you. I love listening to music with you, if you wanted to make it a little bit more general. And these messages fit different functions of language, like initiating play, asking questions, and making a comment. So again, it's the idea is that we want to give them language that fits the communicative function that they're trying to already communicate, and giving them a more robust way of communicating the same message. It doesn't have to be stuck with just one way.
Anthony, can I ask a quick question about that?
Of course, yes.
So what would you suggest is the most effective way to link to a page that has these sort of phrases? Like, does it become its own sort of like page of like quick hit phrases? Do you link it through other stuff? I'm just trying to think of like the logistics of like getting to that.
Yes. So just this morning, I did this with your son. And so I was trying to think about it, like where's the best place for it to live? Because even though the guidelines are we don't want to change the first page. Okay. So let me go into a second page somewhere. Well, something has to change because there's not room for everything. And so excuse me, under the social page, now not everybody has the same AAC system, so I can just speak to what I did today. That actually, it might be pictured in this previous slide. Maybe not. No. Well, you can see that there's like different folders here, right? Like this is a little words folder. This is a description folder. This opens up to other vocabulary. There's one that's just a social tab that already has some pre-programmed phrases in it, such as like, I need to take a break, or thank you, please, like those kinds of like social etiquette vocabulary. And so what I did in the social tab was to add another folder in there that's just called quick fires. And it was in there that I added this language about like, can I open the door, or can I open it? Like, I like watching it open. Let's open it together. So that, and I tried to categorize it kind of like the same topic is in the same like vertical line. And then when it comes to like something like music, there's one tab that then opens up to the music page. So I think that what I programmed off the top of my head was something like let's listen to music. It's just one hit, let's listen to music. Because all along I have been modeling the language separately. Let's listen to music. All those pauses indicate the different symbols that you would have to put together to make a sentence like that. And instead of right now, instead of using that dissected approach, that single word approach, let's listen to music, just putting it all together. Let's listen to music that we can then show down the line how these words come together and have their own meaning as well. Does that make sense to Polly?
Yeah, I think so. I'll be interested in like playing around and seeing what you program as well.
Yeah, I mean it's not exhaustive. Let me just put that out there that we are all like I'm constantly learning. Us like we at the clinic are constantly learning too, and then there's always opportunities to collaborate. This was just something that after taking this class I wanted to apply. And so you know, we can always come up with other ideas as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. The idea, again, is just to reiterate, is that we want to give these longer potential. I use the course uses the terms like potential gestalts because it's a potential, meaning that like it might not stick, and if it doesn't stick, that's okay. Then we would try something else. So it's only really a gestalt if it's meaningful to the child, and if the child uses it. Like naturally and in their own way. Okay, so that kind of, although we will revisit the topic of AAC and GLP in this list of do's and do nots, that kind of concludes like this little segment that's specifically dedicated to AAC. So let's continue on through the outcomes, and I hopefully have budgeted the time to ask questions at the end as well. Okay, so this slide looks really busy because it is. But again, I'm just checking the participants really quick. Okay. We did show this slide last week, but we were kind of towards the end of the session, so I wanted to just bring it back. These are the things that we should do with the Gestalt language processor. And perhaps the biggest thing is build a connection. The language that a GLP uses is individually chosen. And so the activities, at least in therapy, of course, outside of therapy where, you know, there's so many other factors that you all have to consider and incorporate, you know, I give yourself some grace, but at least in therapy, we would want the activities to be child-led, so individually chosen, a familiar and enjoyable activity, and something that's sensory regulating to them. That's to say that it by no means will it ever, or should it ever be, it's me as the SLP, it's my way or the highway. That's not how this should go. Now, of course, I come to the table with my own ideas and, you know, I try to see what sticks, and if it doesn't, that's okay. But I just wanted to emphasize that. We would want to validate any and all language or sound that's used, provide natural language models, which we will see a little bit more of in the video when I play it. Use lots of intonation and if you're able to match the child's intonation as well. So our voices go up and down all the time anyway. And so we just, you know, overemphasize that. I love singing songs. Like I probably said last week, if I work with any of your children, you know that I sing songs to the kids a lot. We would want, like I said, just to reiterate, we would follow their own interests, provide regulation activities, model from the child's perspective, and then, as we discussed last time, you know, consult with your child's SLP, because I'm giving kind of general information about this, but your child's SLP would know more specifically about perhaps the treatment plan and the ways to interact with your child, the more than I would. And then, as we discussed last time too, about we would want to advocate for neuroaffirming treatment plans that consider that the child is a Gestalt language processor. Now, that was a lot of should do's, but I think that some like actionable things that you all can consider when interacting with your child, regardless of if they are speaking or non-speaking or minimally speaking, is to model from the child's perspective. I know that I brought this up last week, but the idea here is that if they were to demonstrate echolalia, so if they were to repeat exactly what you said immediately, or delayed echolalia, so if they were to repeat something that they've heard, but just a little bit down the line, then they're still correct in saying, so we get kind of caught up in this, like, is it your turn? Is it my turn? Because if I say me, it means me, but if you say you, it means you. And we can take that all away by just modeling from the child's perspective. So I want to do it doesn't refer to Mr. Anthony wanting to do it. It refers to the child with whom I'm speaking. I want to do it. And so a way that I kind of like get around that to hopefully lessen the confusion is using like a visual and like tapping on the child's shoulder or something like, I want to do it, or Mr. Anthony, you do it. So that could be some language that could be beneficial to you all too. So I want that to be a takeaway to model from the child's perspective. Let's watch the video quickly. And then I also, in this video, the child is minimally speaking and uses AAC. And so I can get to the rest of the talking points on this slide after that. 1 second. I think it's this one. Okay. We did watch this, so this should be familiar.
Let's find
and let me know if you can hear it.
Red star first.
A red star. Okay. Yeah. Let's find the red star. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Where's baby?
Where's the red star?
Red star. Where's the red?
Where? Yes. Where is it?
Where is it?
Where is it?
Matthews, do you want
help?
Do you want help?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Let me see if I can.
Look. I got it.
I got it. Good.
Okay. So some things that I like from that video and that maybe you caught onto as well is that the SLP is using natural language models like where is it, as opposed to like only talking about like the red star or whatever it was that they were trying to find. And so she used a slow pace. She modeled language both verbally and through AAC, and you can see that the child was engaged. She seemed to be motivated. They seem to have a connection, and it makes the task enjoyable, hopefully for him, at least from the video. And so some things that we should do with a GLP who uses AAC is to customize the vocabulary for the individual, with the note that we would not change or remove vocabulary from the child's device, at least from the first page. Like I acknowledged earlier, there's only so much that we can do really when there's only a set group of squares that we can program vocabulary into, and so some things might have to move to a different location, but we would just really want to preserve the first page. We would model potential gestalts via AAC. So not just with our verbal language, but also with augmented language. So we would want to communicate with the child in the manner in which we expect them to communicate as well. And then we would program and use Gestalt in different contexts and for a variety of functions and honor total communication, which is this total communication is, with gestures and pointing and shaking your head no means no. They don't have to say it in another way than that. We accept all of their communication equally. Any questions here so far? If you do have questions, feel free to turn on your mic or just drop it in the chat.
Hi, Anthony. I have a question.
Tell me.
Maybe this is for kiddos that are a little bit older, but I was thinking about something that one of the moms said last week, how her son will want her to repeat something, but like let's say he says something like, we're done playing with trains, and he wants the mom to repeat it, but then he gets mad because he doesn't want to actually be done with the trains.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be okay to just kind of maybe say something like, would it help you if I say we're done with trains, even though it's not true? Or do you think that's a little too advanced to say?
No, I like that question because this is something that I've thought about since we talked about it last week.
Yes.
That I actually took notes of this during the class that I took. So I think that we're kind of talking about not just how the child is processing language. There's also like a behavior there. There's like a desire for control. There's other factors here than just the language processing. And so I think that in times like that, the BCBAs that I work with would say that we established the expectation that this is all done. I can say it for you one more time. It's all done. And then we have to move on. And you might have a tantrum that comes after that. And that is, something that I might not be able to advise on because I see the relation, or we all see the relation of the language processing and the acceptance of something that's out of your control, right? Or like the child's acceptance of someone saying no. So something that I thought about that might take some pressure off of the adults in situations like that. Now, forgive me as I'm thinking too. I remember that when we brought it up last week, it was like there might be times where we have to repeat language over and over again. Just like mommy, say, I don't know, I want blueberries or something. And we're constantly like in that loop. I was like, well, with one of my kiddos, they really liked listening to the same video over and over again of their parents speaking. And so in times like that, like, can you just is it possible to make a recording of this gestalt or this script that the child wants to hear over and over again so that it takes the pressure off of the adult to keep talking. They can record themselves and then the child can maybe listen to it on a loop in order to get whatever function it's trying to satisfy for them. I know that I'm not quite answering the question, and that's because we're talking about language behavior regulation. So if I've confused you further, please let me know. But if I've given you any kind of positive guidance, please also let me know. That would be affirming to me.
No, I appreciate that, Anthony. Thank you. And that just reaffirms the fact that this is all very individualized.
Yeah. I wish that I had a cure-all. But I think that in situations like that, we have to that might be something that we can connect with like ABA if the client receives ABA or OT as well. Kind of this acceptance of no, or that this is finished.
Thank you.
If there aren't any other questions, I can move on through the presentation. But if there are, let me see. Oh, okay. Okay, so this is something that was brought up last week too, is that things that we should do with our musical kiddos. Join in with singing with them. This acknowledges their language and supports the connection that the kids are seeking, and that really helps with their regulation, with their engagement. And I know that I would be surprised if any of your children have not asked you to stop singing, because even I think that I have a pretty nice voice, you know, they tell me, Anthony, stop singing. And the reason for this, or a potential reason for this, is that many GLPs have perfect pitch. And so if we are not singing in the right key, or that they've learned it in, they don't want to hear it sometimes. And that's fascinating to me. So don't be offended. Now, we can also model gestalts that we're targeting with a musical quality. So with the notion that the rich intonation can gain their attention. So this I kind of pair with this next point, that when we start to mitigate or mix and match the language, we can explore like plugging in new lyrics. So like instead of 5 little monkeys, 5 little penguins jumping on the bed. So something that I've used to help with my transitions, which may help with this like loop that we were talking about with regarding accepting no, is like the "We're Going on a Bear Hunt" song that everyone loves. You know, I'm like, we're going to the clinic gym. I got Mr. Anthony, you know, kind of like using that same melody. And sometimes when it hits, you know, and the kids are like, they drop everything and they're ready to go. And then we can explore opportunities to play and connect using music, like instruments. And you can do this in your everyday activities, like getting dressed, taking a bath. I do want to show it's pretty short, a great way that this comes about, or came about in this child here.
Press. Aladdin. No.
Would they see a poor boy? No, siree. Would they see a poor boy? No, siree.
And you might be able to see it just like that.
So this is Buddy.
Oops, sorry. He communicated Aladdin, no. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the child, you might think, well, like he just told me no to Aladdin, you know, like I'm not doing it, you know, but he was actually trying to communicate, to talk about a specific song. And so that's just a way that we can incorporate music and with our GLPs who also use AAC. Now, remember that the goal of Gestalt language processing is to use flexible, autonomous language. This is the word segmentation that we talked about. So this leads me to talk about what we should not do. Let's watch the video first and then talk about it too. It's another short. Oops.
Hey Jacob, look at me.
Yeah.
Did you have a hot dog or a hamburger today?
Hamburger today.
Did you have a hamburger or a hot dog?
The hot dog.
One more time. Okay. Do you like chocolate or vanilla?
Banana.
Do you like vanilla or chocolate?
Chocolate.
What's your favorite letter? Is it N or P?
My favorite. Okay. Hey Lucas,
Yes.
what's your favorite alphabet?
What's my favorite letter in the alphabet?
Yeah.
It's probably K.
What's K?
Right there. Is your favorite letter N or O?
O.
Is it O or N?
N.
What's your favorite letter of the alphabet?
N. L.
L? Oh, okay. Cool, because it's my name?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really nice of you. Thank you.
Okay. I will exit out there. And now this is an SLP who did this on purpose. I had to look it up because I was like, please tell me this is on purpose. Things that we should not do with our GLPs is ask questions, especially ones that we expect the answer to. And the reason for that, as evidenced in the video, is that a lot of times our GLPs, or even our young kiddos, regardless of if they're GLPs, are not ready for the language demand that is answering a question. Answering a question is its own communicative function, and it's quite advanced because we have to think about not only what question or what's the purpose here, like what are you actually asking me, but you also have to then inform, which is in this video where he's talking about his preferences. He wasn't able to even identify what his preference was. Instead, he was just repeating the last part that he, meaning the client, was just repeating the last part of the question. We would also want and encourage, here we encourage all the disciplines to avoid teaching phrases. So something like "I want" can become stuck, meaning that down the line, to be able to pull apart all these individual the individual word "I" and "want" might not be able to be segmented in the way that a naturally acquired Gestalt would. Same thing with like, and this is something that I do all the time, you know, like ready, set, go. Leaving that blank of like ready, set, and then like that pause and waiting for the kid to then say go. And again, the reason for that is because by giving so much of the assisted language, like "I want," and then that pause, the child can become too reliant on the communication partner to actually communicate autonomously or for themselves. So what we would do though is like, "I want a cookie," or like "ready, set, go down the slide." Just finish the sentence is so that it becomes like a true potential Gestalt. Now, and we also wouldn't want to place demands on language use. We wouldn't want to withhold items or information. You know, we just want to play, basically, is what it comes to be. We want things to be child-led. We also don't want to get too hung up on worrying about pronouns. And so what like this goes back to like what we should do with like using like we language, us language, let's, or just modeling from the child's perspective. And then we don't want to try to get rid of a script because what we are doing is giving them other potential gestalts that can fit that same function and hope that, or not just hope, but like really intend on those potential gestalts sticking so that the child can use that language instead or in addition to. And now, like for what we should not do for our AAC users is use like only a standard set of gestalts. So we would want them to be individualized. We wouldn't want to change the main page of the vocabulary or program kind of without a plan, just to program. We wouldn't want to hide vocabulary, and I should put like an asterisk there that I am aware that we sometimes have or do hide vocabulary for the purpose of acquiring other language. However, the best practice is to not hide vocabulary, and if we have hidden it, the best practice is to always add language. Really, like gold standard would be adding language to someone's device every session. We would not want to use sentence starters like I want or I need. And that is kind of highlighted in this last point here, where we don't want to prompt, and that we want to model and create opportunities to communicate, but to overly prompt a child could result in them being dependent on the communication partner rather than using autonomous language. So we don't know what the communicator wants to say. We can create opportunities and we can make guesses, but ultimately we don't know. I'm aware of the time, so let's make sure that we're getting through this today. Learned scripts such as that I want or I need or can I go, like those kinds of things. Like single words and scripted requests, they don't break down naturally. So they end up with this unmitigable or this like this idea or this this notion, excuse me, that these words cannot be broken apart and mixed and matched. So they end up with this unmitigable language and little else to work with. So that comes from Marge Blanc, who wrote about NLA and GLP early in the 80s. So the reason, again, that we don't want to just give them those phrases is because they can become stuck. They're not acquired naturally. Another thing that we don't want to do is to take scripts literally. And this is something that in my earlier days as an SLP I did, and this last one here, are you okay? I know that a parent brought that up last week. When a child says, "Are you okay?" It likely means that they're hurt or they're not feeling well. And that's because think of the situation that they were in when they heard the sentence, "Are you okay?" It's because an adult likely was asking them, "Are you okay?" I remember like a child saying, "Are you okay?" to me, and then he ended up getting sick. And so I'm like, oh, he wasn't asking me if I was okay. He was telling me that he was not okay. We have a client at our clinic who uses this top gestalt. iPhone storage is full. You can free up space on this iPhone by managing your storage in the settings, and uses that really rich intonation, sing-songy kind of voice. And what that might mean is like, leave me alone. I want you to go away. I need help. It does not mean literally that the iPhone storage is full. I don't know if everybody has had experiences like that where these gestalts, don't quite fit the situation, and that's because there is a function to it, or to these gestalts, that is beyond what we're seeing in the situation. And our job is to investigate what does that mean to the client. Let's get through the rest of the slides, though. I can talk about that for a long time. Learned and natural gestalts. So a learned gestalt or a taught script could be, "I need a break," or "I want a cookie." "Mr. Anthony, what color is your shirt?" I get that all the time. Whereas a naturally occurring gestalt is like an entire song, or "Who took the cookie from the cookie jar? Where did it go?" If you remember from the video that we watched last week, one of the girls in the video said, "Don't worry, I'll help you find your mama." And then she eventually said, "Don't worry, you'll find the ball." So it was naturally acquired. And then I have a kiddo who just screamed at me one day saying, "Monkey chase!" And what that meant was, "Come play tag with me." So you can see this difference of like what's natural to the child versus what was taught. So this is kind of a repeat of what we've already expressed. We want to do some detective work. We want to investigate what the scripts mean, what function do they hold, and what language could they then benefit from if we were to fulfill that same function. That's a huge takeaway from this presentation, I hope. We wouldn't want to extinguish a script. Instead, we want to give language to fit that function as well. Okay, so we're here. we talked about last week, echolalia and delayed echolalia. We talked about how speech and language comes in units for ALPs, analytic language processors. The one unit is likely a single word. For GLPs, Gestalt Language Processors, that one unit can be an entire sentence that over time, throughout the stages of Gestalt Language Processing, the goal is to have that one unit, that really long sentence, be more understood to be composed of individual units or individual words. Scripting is communication. We don't want to extinguish it. We just have to learn more about what the function is for the child or for the communicator. We want to honor all of the kids' communication, and we don't want to ignore anything. And overall, follow the child's lead and have fun, build connections with them, honor their interests and ideas. It makes therapy a lot more fun for the child, for the family, for me as the SLP, and I would hope that it would also do that for you, especially during playtime or during dinner time, such as like things like that. This is the research that I've cited in this presentation. And then I also, and you'll get all of this too, as like when the recording comes out, but I included some further reading. I know that there was a question about bilingualism last week, essentially. Kind of like I suspected after doing some reading about it, that we all want you all to use the language that you want and should and is culturally relevant to you in your homes. And so when it comes to bilingual Gestalt language processing, it really doesn't have that much of a difference, or it doesn't have a difference at all. The only thing is that we as the SLPs who might not speak the same language as you would just have to we'd have to like share that information with each other. Like, what does this mean? I included this this list of books, picture books, that's all about that features people with autism and neurodiversity, and so that maybe you can add some to your bookshelves there too. Now, this is a shameless plug, but here at our clinic and at our academy, we are always looking for ways in which we can boost our reviews online. And so if you found this valuable, you know, it would mean a lot to me to leave a positive review. However, I did this out of, yes, I see Christine's raising her hand. I did this out of wanting to teach you all about how to interact with your children. So there's no pressure there. But yes, Christine.
Hi, so Chris, my husband Chris asked a question in the chat.
Yes.
He was curious as to like if you know what the functional purpose of rich intonation for GLPs are.
Yes. So the idea there is that which I know I didn't really address, but so we in the research we talk about how analytic language processors, we call them like word babies, so that they acquire these words and then they start kind of like pointing at everything like chair, banana, bear, etc. Whereas GLPs we call intonation babies, and that you can hear it in their voices that they have this like rich intonation. And so we would just try to the idea there is to use the musical side of their brain. This kind of goes into more of like the neurology of it. There's research to suggest that Gestalt language processors, sorry, and I have to simplify this answer. How about this? The child often uses rich intonation, and so we as communication partners can also use that rich intonation. That's kind of like the simplified answer of it. The longer answer is that we use the right hemisphere of our brain to process music, in the left hemisphere of our brain to process language. And
Mhm.
so there is current research that's about, where do GLPs use the right hemisphere, the music side of their brain, more than analytic language processors to communicate to communicate. So that research is still developing, but the idea is really that because the kids often use rich intonation, we just want to use what they are using as well. I know that there's another question here, but go ahead.
So you're saying that they use the rich intonation probably because it's their way of emphasizing things because they're using the right side of their brain to like process language. So like basically, I guess like the ups and the downs of their voices when they're talking is how they're using to like emphasize the emotions behind it, I guess. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, yes, and it really could just be about like connected. It could be as simple as like it's just connected to the song that they use. It could be, it's like so I don't know if I have like a one kind of like fits all kind of answer to that, but largely it can capture their attention in a way that speaking in a monotone voice might not.
Yeah.
So
And are there GLPs that use monotone?
I'm sure.
Okay.
I don't
Mine
know of
doesn't,
any.
but,
Yeah. I see that there's another question in the chat too.
Sure.
This morning, while on our way to school, his brother pointed at him and said, "Look, Akram, the school bus is yellow." And he got very upset and wanted to change the sentence to "the school bus is orange." He kept telling him, "Say that, the school bus is orange." His brother kept repeating it to him twice and told him, "We're done." And he screamed and got upset, wanting to repeat him in the same way. Yeah, I can imagine that that these are real life situations where, having to accept no, or that think about the social part of communication, that sometimes people, especially other kids, they don't want to do the things that you want them to do.
So I don't understand. So for this example, was it that the brother didn't say the school bus is orange, or that he didn't say it in the right tones?
Maybe Razan can answer that, but I would think that it might be both, but sometimes in my experience it's both, or maybe not in tandem, but I have had children who want me to say it in a specific way and others who just want me to say it. Again, it's kind of individualized, but yeah. Does anybody else have any closing thoughts or questions? I really appreciate that you all have stayed this whole time.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, so I'm Augie's mom.
Yes.
He scripts a lot,
Yeah.
even with scripting. So I am going to do, now that I've taken this course, I'm going to do some investigating, try to figure out exactly what he's scripting. But just curious, because sometimes he'll hop in my bed in the middle of the night, so I'm literally waking up to hearing him script.
Mhm.
And I'll try to say, good morning. And if I say it enough times, he'll respond and say good morning back. But I'm just wondering if that is even a good technique. Should I just how do I encourage breaking up the script, but also not to allowing him to be him?
I really like that you asked it like that, that we don't want to change the children. We just want to give them the communication, that they need to, and that they'll need as adults and, as teenagers, So I think that what you've done in that situation is provided a natural language model, like it's first thing in the morning. The first thing that we do is say good morning. So I wouldn't discourage that. I think that from what I know about Augie, he likes to sing about animals or Lion King. I'm not sure if he's still into that, but I know that he at least was. And so something that I remember that Miss Maddie did when she was with us, she would sing the whatever the lesson was in the classroom to the tone of the circle of life, which seem as other adults in the room, people, you might be like, what are you doing? But we're really just trying to find that connection. And so that kind of goes, or not kind of, it indeed goes with that idea of like matching the intonation. And so I guess in a situation like that where you're getting woken up in the middle of the night, first of all, you're trying your best. Like give yourself credit there. But I would like, assuming that you were ready to talk and all of that, I would think about like, what is he saying and how can we shape it to fit the scenario that you're in.
Okay.
But what I wouldn't do is to discourage him from talking.
Okay.
So I guess and that's something to bring up with his SLP team here too. Because that's a real life situation that you then have to know what to do, So I don't know if I've quite answered your question, but I hope that was
No, that's helpful. Yeah, I know it's all like a trial and error situation, but yeah, that was helpful.
Yeah. Anybody else? I know that we're a little past 1 o'clock, but I'm happy to answer questions, or you can shoot me an email, which my email address is included in the description of the course. And so I hope that I hope that I've accomplished the things that I wanted to accomplish with the course. I hope that you can take some things and apply them. And all of your SLPs are well trained and well intentioned and can give you more sound advice too as you leave the course. So that might be it. Yeah, of course. Thank you all so much for your participation. It's been lovely to get to know all of you, especially since I don't work with most of you. So all right. Take care. Have a good rest of your day. Bye, everyone.